Alright, so in my last video, I went through how to basically rebuild the Nintendo joysticks for the Versus Dual system, the Red Tent. In this video, I'm going to focus more on my plan for the buttons. Uh, you know, as I mentioned before, the Nintendo buttons are kind of a pain. They're special. Um, they don't they sit a little bit taller than most standard buttons. Um, the holes that basically of the body where they fit through the control panels are narrower than your standard button that you'll find on most arcade machines, newer arcade machines. Um, and they're a very specific size. The length of the actual button itself is a very specific size. Um, so in my last video, like I said, I went through and I rebuilt a couple of well, I pulled the control panel first. Then I went through and rebuilt some of these joysticks, which turned out awesome. Looking forward to playing on those. And yeah, so buttons. So maybe to start with, let's talk about, and there's some comparison videos, pictures online where you can see exactly what the differences are. Let me see if I can find. Here's kind of a standard button. Okay, so this one came off of Centipede. I replaced it with the red one that I've got on there. So you can see here. It's a little bit shorter. This one sits pretty tall. If you just look at it from the top, it sits pretty tall. Not too dissimilar from a Nintendo button. And this is pretty good example, I guess, of one. And it sits so a little bit taller. The big thing, really, that if you're trying to replace the buttons on these control panels, these Nintendo control panels, that you're going to find is that you just simply can't get them through. I mean, they just don't fit. Whereas the Nintendo one will fit through just fine. So I mean, this ridge here, this lip here around the inside here, it's just too big. So that's probably, I mean, that's up front. That's the biggest problem with the replacement buttons. You can adjust the micro switches for the difference in length, which actually is pretty close here. So again, the main thing is just dealing with this length and the colors. I mean, the Nintendo, they've got their own kind of colors that they put on these things, and it can be kind of tricky to find them. So I'm going to use as many original buttons on my control panels for this rebuild that I can. But I've got to try and figure out a way to get reproductions that will work in place of the buttons that I never got. Eventually, maybe I'll hunt down some of the originals to replace for it. But for now, I gotta get something that's gonna work in this machine and not hopefully look god awful. Right. I should say that I am going to be using original Nintendo buttons as much as possible for the actual user buttons. So the B and the A buttons, those are the ones that the user's going to interact with the most. I mean, it's the ones you're actually playing with. The 1, 2, 3, and 4, a little bit less important, in the grand scheme of things, like day-to-day playing, that they look and feel correct. But these, yeah, the B and the A, it's really important. And luckily, I was able to find some original Crimson buttons online. Just a dude on Clav, the Kill List of video games, happened to be selling these things. So he did a great job. These are they were either out of a machine that hadn't seen a lot of plays, or he did just a spanking job polishing these up. Color, it's a bit faded. You can see kind of the original color underneath compared to the top. And there's some chips and things like that here and there. Again, we're not creating museum pieces here. We're creating, a a player's game, a game that you sit down and you feel awesome playing. And you know what? I mean, that's ultimately what I'm kind of all about is making games that you want to play like crazy. Um, so I do actually have good buttons for those. The blues and the greens on both sides, I got some problems with. One of them was missing entirely. The green was missing entirely. The blue one was also missing entirely. On the other side, I did get a green. The blue was I think the blue one was also missing. It doesn't matter. But the green was like snapped in half. I mean the much like this one, the top of the button, the actual part that you typically touch, was just snapped off. And so this obviously is not the same button. It's a white one. But same issue. So it's like there's nothing to do with it, and the original button is gone. How am I going to deal with this problem? Bob Roberts, who you can find online at therealbobroberts.net. He does sell buttons which are very similar, much like the white one I was showing you. Very similar in size and basic shape to the Nintendo buttons. And the main problem again is that they're just too darn wide at that base. So actually that's a good one. So what you have to do is you have to shave them down, and it's a pretty straightforward process. You know, what I've been using on these has been a Dremel. So I'm just taking a sanding bit on my Dremel, just a small head, and using that to basically go around this outside edge, being very careful not to hit the body or the lip that sits above the control panel, and just basically just gently shaving them all the way down until they fit. You know, you're removing a fair amount of material. There is a little bit of a difference, like I said, a pretty big difference between the sides. But there's just no other way you're going to get these buttons to fit. I mean, sure, you could drill out the control panel, but that's stupid. I mean, you know, this is $1 button. That's a much trickier and more expensive part. And there's no need. I mean, this really, it's a little bit tedious getting this work done, but it's very doable. And, you know, with a little bit of carefulness, you can replace, you know, a full set of buttons on here with buttons which are perfectly passable. Now, I'm not saying they're correct, but they're perfectly passable for playing. And again, for now, that's what we're focused on. Right. So let me kind of figure out what I'd like to do is maybe show you how I'm doing one of the buttons, just so you can see how it works. To go ahead and Dremel it down, and then I will show you what I'm doing after I'm Dremeling it, because you know, the Dremel is like sort of like the big bomb nuke 'em from orbit kind of thing. You know, you get it done and it will fit, but you know, it's still nice to kind of clean up the buttons a little bit more. And I've actually also got so my original buttons, so like this one for example, is filthy, and so I need to try. This is, you know, one of these expensive and fairly uncommon Nintendo buttons. So I've got to, you know, I've got to try and clean this one up as best I can. You know, I really hope it cleans up all right. So step one, you know, I've got a bucket of soapy water sitting next to me. So what I'm going to do is take the buttons that are particularly filthy, like this one, and just go ahead and dunk them in. Now you can take them apart pretty easily before you go through all this, but what I've found is a lot of times with these old buttons, the plastic just gets so brittle, just from, you know, lack of moisture and just age, that what happens is that you might be able to get this E-clip off of here. But you're gonna end up doing some damage to the buttons. And I've actually got a beautiful orange button from a Donkey Kong that actually is the one that came on my Donkey Kong that I replaced. But I've got a beautiful orange Donkey Kong that, you know, someone had to stick a wire through here basically because the E-clip wouldn't, you know, hold. And you can't, you know, I mean, I guess you could go down, you know, a little bit further down the shaft and cut a new channel for the E-clip, but then your button's going to sit, you know, smaller, and you know, it's just, and it may actually interfere with the micro switch. So Anyway, what we're gonna do is yeah. So I'm gonna go through all my buttons that I've got here that need to be cleaning and get them dunked in the soapy water. Just a little bucket of warm soapy water here. And forget about this. Anyway, so let me collect together the buttons, which I know need to be some cleaned and polished. Get them dunked in the water here, and then let those soak. And while they're doing that, I'll see if I can find one of the buttons that I can shave down with the Dremel. Alrighty, so yeah, start with so we are going to be using Dremel. So on with your safety glasses. And like I said, I've just got a small sanding bit in here. The small ones are kind of nice because it's a little bit of a precision job cutting these things down. So what I've got here is a couple of, so these are just standard buttons. This would be like I said, like a Ms. Pac-Man centipede kind of button. The holes, like for example, on this Ms. Pac-Man control panel I've got here, they're just a lot bigger. So the diameter of this hole it's got slop in there. It can move around. You put a Nintendo button in there, it'd be like crazy loose, probably. I gotta stop throwing these buttons. Yeah, so it's like much looser. Tons more space. So anyway, the holes, standard holes, much bigger. So I'm gonna cut that down. So yeah, so basically the idea is, again, just basically shaving down this inner ring, this surface here, until it'll fit in the panel. And again, just so running the Dremel around on the inside and until it's cut down. And the plastic on these things are generally pretty soft, so it does go pretty quick. It does tend, because the heat, you want to keep the Dremel on a pretty low speed. Because the heat, it does tend to want to gum up the heads. So you stop and peel it off as best you can, when you can. But I mean, ultimately, you're probably going to go through at least one of these things doing this. One of these heads doing a handful of these buttons. So yeah, like I said, so I've got the other ones soaking. These are all my original Nintendo buttons. These are the repros. I am mistaken. I've got some black ones that did come with a panel. I'm going to try and polish those up. But I mean, ultimately, like I may have to go back with these black ones, for the player buttons. We'll see. All right, so just real quick here. It's again, just be careful not to hit this upper lip here, yeah, just kind of have at it. And this is going to leave you with kind of a rough surface inside here. I mean, no one can see it. It's below the control panel. I'm still going to do something about that because I'd still prefer it to look a little bit nicer than this. So we'll go back in and sand it down a little bit. Just hit it with some sandpaper by hand. I've actually got this on such a low speed. I might actually be able to speed the Dremel up. This is on 1. I'm going to take it up to like 3. And you got to take down a couple millimeters, so obviously you don't want to overdo it, but you do have a fair amount of material you need to remove. There's a thread on the clav, and I hope you guys can hear me over the Dremel. I'll try and speak up a little bit more. There's a thread on the clav, the killer list of video games, where some people are looking at possibly reproducing the Nintendo buttons, again because they're so tricky. That's fantastic, and if I can get good quality reproduction buttons on here, then I would be more than happy to stop using my Dremel to make buttons fit. So as you can see here, we've gone around the outside edge. Maybe kind of hard to tell. This camera, again, details on it, I'm just not so sure about it. But gone around the outside edge, trimmed it down very lightly with the Dremel, and as you can see, it fits. This one don't. It's just, I mean, maybe a millimeter actually. All told, a millimeter in full diameter, just all the way around. And it's not difficult work. It's a little bit painstaking. You just want to be careful because again, you don't want to chew into the lip of the button itself because that shows through in the control panel. But just run the Dremel around the inside edge and knock it down, and you'll get a button which will actually fit. I mean, simple fix. And these buttons, like I said, they came from Bob Roberts, therealbobroberts.net. And I think he refers to these as the short E-clip type. So yeah, shorts. You want the shorts because the tall ones are for the wooden control panels, the thicker control panels where they're not sitting just through the metal, and they need to be thicker so they can actually reach the switches on the other side. So short E-clip, and he's got a variety of different colors. Some of them he has, some he doesn't. Like I said, I got these blue ones, got a couple orange ones just because, the green ones, the black ones, all those came from Bob. Bob's a great guy. A little tricky ordering from him sometimes for people who've never done it before, but it's not difficult. You just go to his website, you email him a list of the stuff that you want. He replies back with what he has in stock if for some reason he's out of stock on something. And he tells you how much it's going to be and what the cost is shipped. And you drop a check in the mail. He doesn't take PayPal. Drop a check in the mail, and he more often than not will cross ship things. So he always tells you when he gets your check. But I think I have yet to have a single order where he's not sent it out, and I've not received the package before he's even received my check. It's a great guy and a wonderful resource for a lot of very tricky to find parts. Anyway. These buttons, they came from Bob, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. So, you can leave these like this. There's no reason why this is a problem. They look just fine. What I think I'm going to do, anyway, is at least take I'm probably going to find some heavier grit that I've got out here. Actually, this is pretty good. I think this is probably 150, and just knock it down. Just smooth it out. No one's going to know about it but you and anyone else who opens up your control panel. But just to smooth it out, and it'll take care of any ridges that you may have left in it. The Dremel definitely will leave little ridges. Strictly speaking, it's not an important step, but I just like to take care of these little details. Makes me happy knowing that it's done, that it's underneath there like that. Stupid, I know, but whatever. So yeah, knock it down a little bit with the sandpaper as an optional step here, and appreciate how smooth it is, and then move on to the next one. So I do have all those blacks to do, those greens to do. To shave down. I'm not gonna go through all of them. You're not gonna want to watch that. I'm gonna drop it off here. There's one more step that I need to do on these things because the other problem is they actually sit just a wee bit too high. You won't be able to tell. I mean, it really is just a hair. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some very, very fine washers, just super lightweight washers. And drop them above the E-clip. I actually had great luck. I've already kind of finished this, but I'll still show you the process. So these purple ones, these ones actually, you see these a lot on the Versus control panels. These the dual system control panels, where they're the purple ones. They fade like crazy. I mean, they've changed to a dramatically different color than the originals. So these ones, they did as well. You can see hopefully you can see underneath here, the difference in color there. The bottom side obviously is not going to be faded. The top is going to be faded, and the light here may not be the best for doing that. It's just fluorescent lights here. Anyway, yeah, so they're kind of tricky to deal with. This one actually, you could certainly tell that, I hope. This one was one of the ones, like I said, that was a cigarette burnt. Anyway, these things were pitted and covered in almost like an adhesive. I don't know if someone had taped these things down at some point, but it taped down and then it had dried on there. And even when I got the polishing wheel out to polish it with the Novus, it actually just like kind of smeared and burned it in. It's a pain in the ass. Anyway, these have turned out pretty well. I'm pretty darn pleased, especially for as far along as they came from where they started. And again, they're original and they're in good enough shape that I think they're going to look great on the control panel. Obviously, I wish they were brighter, wish they were close to the original color, but they're going to turn out just fine. So let me, I still got to get the other blue one done, and then once I get that done, I still got to pull the other buttons out of the bucket, get those polished up, and see how that goes. Alrighty, so I just pulled that filthy yellow one out after soaking for a bit here. Let's get it dried off. Seems like it might actually polish up all right. Still definitely stuff on it. And I might have to just pull this E-clip on this thing. You know, just again, terrifies me to do it. Only because it means that I'm gonna be back to. If I break it and it snaps off, then I'm gonna be back to having to use these reproduction, or well, not reproduction, use these other buttons for it. Anyway, so that's where it's at right now. I mean, it's definitely still dirty. A lot of discoloration in the plastic. So I'm gonna go back to the Dremel again. This time, not with the sander, obviously, but this time with a polishing wheel, and I'm gonna use some Novus on that as well to see about trying to clean that up a little bit. And again, same thing. You want to keep the speed on the low side here. You don't want to just, if you're using polishing compounds, rubbing compounds, things like that, you want to make sure that it stays wet. If it doesn't, you get the chance of actually creating burns. So this can heat up so much against the surface here that you can actually burn, even melt the plastic if it gets hot enough. So, keep the speed low, keep the moisture high. Actually, we did start with a 3, not with a 2. And for this to start with, and this is going to splatter kind of all over the place. I should probably drink some more beer to, so I don't fill this with Novus. I don't need to polish my lungs or esophagus, I guess. Hope I'm not breathing that. Esophagus. Anyway, so get it good and wet. Don't be afraid to put some on the actual polishing pad you're using, at least to start it. Just again to keep things moist. We like it moist. And again, you may see some splatter to start with here, so try and minimize that, keep it down. Protective eyewear is also still a good idea with this. You don't, much like you don't want to polish your esophagus, you don't want to polish your eyeballs. At least I don't. So all I'm doing here is just taking the Dremel, again, keeping it moist, keeping it moving, and just going around the edge and trying to knock down some of this awful discoloration on here. We want it to be nice and shiny. Yeah, I'm actually getting stuff off with my fingernail. So maybe let's see what I got here. That's a 2000 grit paper. That's a polishing paper. 400. And I've got that bucket of water here, so I'm just going to use plain water on this waterproof paper. I'm just lightly going over this thing. I don't want to sand it down or change the shape, or change the shape as little as I possibly can, just to try and get whatever this gunk is on here. And I'm gonna cut this because you don't want to sit in here and watch me sand this thing. You're getting the idea though. So what I'm going to do here is I'll go ahead and cut it. But So essentially, I'll catch up with you as soon as I'm done here. But yeah, I'm gonna sand this down. It's at 400 grit waterproof paper here. See if I can get some of that gunk off, and I'll see you in just a minute. All right. Like I said, I've taken that, hit that with that 400 grit. Geez, I think it was 400 sandpaper. Now that definitely dulls the finish on the button quite a bit, and it's still not totally perfect. So I may have some more work to do. But um, after you're done with that, now you can go back through with the Novus. You know, you got to start with the 3 and then move down to the 2 to see again about trying to actually polish it up a little bit. Um, Slap it on here. Don't need it on my fingers, need it on the tool. All right. And again, keep the speed slow on here, and try and keep it wet. So back to using my knee as a brace. Sorry, I just got Novus all over my faces. And keep it moving. Anywho, all right. So this is the Novus 2. So just gonna step it up to polishing a little bit more. Hopefully we can get a pretty decent shine in this bad boy. Wow, polishing buttons. What an exciting video. But you know, I mean, it's all part of the process. At least, you know, my process. This is obviously just me doing this stuff. I mean, I'm sure other people do things differently, better, probably. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the super awesome at this stuff. It's just something I enjoy doing, and you know, for that matter, it's a hobby. So playing these games is definitely the most enjoyable part of it. But I really enjoy stupid shit like this. Sitting here on a Saturday afternoon, drinking a Guinness or drinking a stout, and polishing a freaking button. I mean, whatever. um, I know it probably doesn't make for good entertainment watching, but it's you know, it's a little bit less than half of the hobby for me. I really enjoy just doing this stuff, and having these projects is just a ton of fun. All right, this button is turning out pretty darn good. There's still some polish that's like stuck in it, and there still is this. And you probably can't see it, but there's still a couple little spots here. It's not bad, but as you can see, it is shiny as all get on out. You know, that Novus stuff does an awesome job. This button, I mean, if you go back to where it was before, you know, where it was like black smeary crap all over it, and even a dunk in the soap bath didn't hardly knock any of that stuff down. And it's looking pretty dang sweet. Again, I'll go back through and work on this one little spot here and try and smooth that out. Damn, that looks good. I mean, again, not perfect, but holy crap, from where it was before. Easy work, nothing complicated. The Dremel's just a shortcut. You can certainly do all this stuff by hand. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and dunk this back down into the water bath, just to you know, some of the polish probably got on the inside there. So I just want to let that stuff kind of wash out a little bit. But there's a button down. That's or nearly down. It's looking great. Anyway, so there's that into the water. The process for the rest of those things, I'm not going to shoot all that stuff. It is the same. So you know, I'm going to sit here for the next whatever, put down another beer, and polish up some more buttons. All right, so it's been a little bit, and I've been working on these buttons. And here's the mock-up I promised. So you can see it looks pretty good. You probably can't tell. Again, this camera. So I haven't put the washers, the little skinny washers that I want to put in for the buttons to get these sitting the correct height. It really matters, like I said, especially for these ones. These are those reproductions, or not reproductions. These are those ones that I got from Bob Roberts. and they are sitting just a wee high. I mean, it's just a tiny bit high. But if you're sitting here playing, you know, you can kind of feel like A is sitting just a little bit too high. Anyway, you know, the rest of them turned out pretty great. You know, the yellow guy down there at the end, polished up super nice. I think pretty happy with generally how the purple works. The blue and the green, you know, they match. They look, you know, pretty good to what we're doing for here. This is that new control panel, the metal overlay that I've got, one of the nicer ones. Still need to clean it up a little bit, but generally it's in great shape. Certainly a far cry from the original one that I had. You know, with it, you can see how badly. Again, so here's probably that tape that I was talking about, and maybe this was hit from where the previous owner had masked it or tried to mask it when he was doing some rattle can work on it. Anyway, it's pretty rough. I mean, I'll see what I can do about polishing it up, because it would be nice, you know, for someone if they've got one that's and this one's fairly straight. You know, if someone's looking for one just to throw on their machine because they're missing one, or you know, I've seen on eBay, I don't know, some dude makes like an overlay for this thing, which I don't really care for, but you know, maybe that would make someone happy to have at least the metal panel, and I can, you know, sell it cheap, just pass on the parts. You know, these things, they are not made anymore, so unless someone decides to do a repro of it, which maybe that'll happen. Anyway. Well pleased with how the buttons are turning out here. You know, I've got a couple buttons still soaking for the other side of the panel, but I'll get those cleaned up and ready to go as well. Then, like I said, the only other thing is getting the washer on these black ones, and black ones are a little bit tall, and the green one's a little bit tall. So I think it's really just a tiny little washer those things need. And it shouldn't affect play at all. It'll still feel, you know, as far as like the weight of the button or how it feels, it should feel just fine. That's gonna do it. Thanks again for watching. I hope some part of this was useful or informative, or I'm not gonna go as far as saying that it was entertaining, because I'm sure it wasn't terribly entertaining. I am going to continue to do these things for the duration of this project. You know, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel to receive email updates from YouTube, I think they send them out like once a week or something like that. You know, you'll get an update that I've uploaded a new video. I don't know how frequent the uploads are going to be. It just kind of depends on how long it takes for me to edit these things. I'm having to do them in kind of bits and pieces. And for that matter, editing the video. You know, like I said, you know, I'm not an actor. I'm not a I'm not a writer. I'm not a comedian, and not a public speaker. So, doing my best here. Hopefully, it's someone finds it useful. And yeah, so my plan is I will at the very least finish the project with the red tent here and the bits and pieces of that. You know, we've still got to pull the whole thing apart. I've got to pull the monitors out. I've got to rebuild. I've got cap kits for both monitors. I've got a new flyback for one of the monitors, which I'm thinking maybe it needs one. If not, I do have another project which will be able to use that flyback. So, you know, worst case scenario, that's where that one will go. So I'll pull the monitors, disassemble the whole thing. Rebuild the monitors, you know, the chassis on those things, just cap kits on them, pretty straightforward stuff, but, you know, I'll go ahead and film it. And then sending, you know, prepping and sending the metal parts off to paint. That should do it. You know, for the 9th time, thanks again. I hope it's useful, and I will see you next time. Cheers.